much for coming out here today. It's amazing. It's also really nice to get out of the freezing cold in New York and DC. But I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so thrilled to come to the heart of where we're going to change this country. Because that is why we're really coming out today and every day until next November. And every day after that, too. I want to reiterate and go over something that Dr. West was talking about, what he mentioned. Because if those of you who don't know, you better know who Dr. West is. And one of the things that Dr. West wrote early that shaped my life deeply was something that he just said right now, which is that justice is what love looks like in public. I don't want us to take that for granted, because what we're here to do and what this campaign is about, what this larger movement is about, is establishing a loving society in the United States of America. And that is not some kind of irrational, overly feeling, sympathetic statement or sentimental statement. Because what a loving society is an advanced society. A just society, a loving society, is one that guarantees health care to all people. A loving society, an advanced society, an anti-racist society. It's a society that guarantees education of equal quality and merit to all people. And not just the education of a century ago, an education for the century to come. And that means tuition-free public colleges and trade schools in the United States of America. A loving society embraces immigrants and realizes that we cannot do this without each and every one of us linking arms together. A loving society, an advanced society, make sure that we have a planet to give to our kids. A loving and advanced society knows that we cannot continue an imperialist form of foreign policy. A loving and advanced society doesn't think of human rights as a nice to have. It thinks of human rights as the central focus of what we should be establishing here and abroad. One of the reasons why I am part of this campaign is because I know, and we all know, that this isn't just about Bernie Sanders. This is about a movement that has been decades in the making. This is not about just 4 years. This is about our lifetimes. And one of the things that makes this campaign different is that we know that we can't go back to the way things were before. Because the way things were before is how we got to where we are now. rich are put first and working people are put last in Washington day in and day out. We cannot go back to a world that explodes our military budget and nobody thinks anything about it. I have to tell you, these last few weeks in Congress, we've been passing appropriations budget after budget. And one of those budgets was the defense budget. And what we're seeing and what we just passed was a budget that was $120 billion more than Obama's budget leaving in his last year in office. $120 billion more. Now, I think it's really critical that we think about this for a second, because not once was I or anyone I know asked whose taxes are gonna go up to pay for that. Not once was I asked, are we going to tax the rich or tax the middle class? Not once. This is not just some kind of campaign line. This is reality. We only talk about raising taxes when it comes to taking care of our kids and saving our planet and establishing health care. It is an ultimate hypocrisy. So I'm here to say and to tell you, when someone asks you, how are we going to pay for it? The question is not that. The question is not, how are we going to pay for it? The question is, how do we want to pay for it? Do we want a wealth tax? Do we want a Wall Street transaction tax? Do we want to treat our lives as equal in value to how much we treat our military budget? Yes, because budgets, as Dr. King said, are moral documents. Budgets are moral documents. They tell us, dollar and dime, how much we value ourselves and our priorities in that order. And what this campaign is about is a radical realignment of our priorities in the United States of America. Because we know, once again, that this moment is not about one 4-year presidential campaign. This is a movement decades in the making. It's a movement of anti-racist Black liberation activists, of immigration activists, of queer liberation activists, of the labor movement. It is a movement of all people and causes come together. And we have to take it to the starting line, because that's what we're fighting for. This election is about the start of this work, because we're nowhere near there right now. So we need to fight to start this work, the establishment of an advanced society. Because as much as we like to say, thank you, but thank you. Because as much as we like to say that the United States is the richest country in the history, or rather in modern history. For who? The richest country. Who cares about how much gold is being amassed if we can't realize an advanced society with those resources? And we're here to say that what we're living in right now is not an advanced society. A society that allows people. It is fascism. What we have, what we're evolving into as well. And so one of the things, thank you. And so one of the things, thank you. And that's the work that we're committed to. And so what we have to do is admit and say, use the words that, sorry, I'm a little thrown off, but I'm coming back here. I'm recentering, guys. And so what we gotta do is to say that a nation that allows people to die because they can't afford their insulin is not an advanced nation. A nation where people are too poor to live while GDP skyrockets and the Dow goes up and the NASDAQ and stock prices continue to skyrocket is not an economy that's working for us. And if we're measuring our success based on stock prices and not wages, we've got a problem. We have to determine our measures of success. And one thing more is that this is not just about the concentration of capital and wealth on the 1%, or rather the top tenths of 1%. But it's also about that happening on the scaffolding of slavery and imperialism and racism. And when we acknowledge both of those things at once, we can establish justice. And I'm telling you, it's not that far off. It is always darkest before dawn. And it's dark right now, needless to say. But there are several ways in which Senator Sanders distinguishes himself. One way is that he has one of the most ambitious climate plans in the country, period. His Green New Deal is a solution that actually attempts to be on the scale of the crisis. If you want to know what we risk if we don't act adequately on climate, look at what is happening in Australia right now. The fires are so big, they can't even fight them anymore. We're seeing 3 days of the hottest days on record happening in a row. People are trapped. Species are going endangered in a very small period of time. We belong to the earth, not the other way around. And policy that honors indigenous wisdom and leadership is smart policy. When it comes to foreign policy, Bernie Sanders also stands unique among the field. His long commitment to making sure that we are scaling back endless war is proven, and it is strong. And he knows that foreign policy is also domestic policy for so many of us, for our families, for people who have families abroad. And he knows that whether it's here at home with Puerto Rico or out abroad in Palestine, that human rights are for everyone. The right to clean water, the right to access medicine. None of these things are controversial. And that human rights are not a zero-sum game where the gains of another are a threat to ourselves. We reject that outright. But the thing is, we need to get on that starting line. We have to get on that starting line. And so what I am asking you all to do is to contribute meaningfully to this movement, to your movement. And what that means, it's more than just $1. It's more than knocking on a door. But what I always say is that each and every one of us has something to give. We all have something to give. Whether it's showing up with your neighbor and translating a form for them, whether it is knocking on your neighbor's door, whether it's creating art and posting it on the streets, whether it's writing an essay on Facebook, but don't argue with anybody, okay? That's a waste of time. We all have something to give. And what I am asking is for all of us to give whatever we can. That is what revolution looks like. And that's what we have to give. And it is happening all over the country and the world. Look at what happened in Puerto Rico earlier this year. Millions, or rather, huge percentages of the island coming out. And when they took out everything, when people were holding up signs and said, they took so much from us, we weren't scared of anything we had to lose. People went out to the streets and they engaged in what we called as cacerolazo, which is they had a wooden spoon and a pan and they made noise until they got it done. That's a big part of the movement in front of us. And we have a long list of things to do. We need to dismantle ICE and CBP. We need to recognize climate refugees. We need to guarantee a living wage. And we need to unite our fight. And so with that, I'm just so thankful to be here in this moment and in this movement with you. So I want to ask you to wear out your shoes. I want to ask you to create art for this, to paper the streets for this, to give $10 for this, to knock on a door for this, to do whatever you can for this, because this is what revolution looks like. And by the way, for anyone who accuses us for instituting purity tests, it's called having values. It's called giving a damn. It's called having standards for your conduct, to not be funded by billionaires, but to be funded by the people, which is different. And I can tell you, as a member of Congress, when people say that there is no difference between being funded by a handful of wealthy people and being funded by small grassroots donations, let me tell you something. I go into work all the time, and I hear people say, "What will my donors think?" I hear that phrase. And I see that billionaires get members of Congress on speed dial and waitresses don't. Okay? There's a difference. And a candidate that is accountable to small dollar donors is fundamentally differently aligned than anybody else.